from the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, this is the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, hosted by Ron Young.
All right, welcome everybody to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon. I am not Ron Young, as you can probably tell, not nearly as good looking, but my name is Sargent, and since Ron is on the East Coast, I'm going to be your host for today. And with me today is Rolf Kaiser. Rolf is the president of the St. Francis Sailing Foundation, and a little bit of background about our speaker. He grew up sailing in upstate New York on Lake Ontario. He came out west to get a degree from Stanford in mechanical engineering, and just as important, if not more so, he was a member of the Stanford University sailing team. Along with me, we had a lot of great sailing adventures with that. He's been a member of the local J105 fleet for years. He's won both the J105 North Americans and Big Boat Series, his J105 twice. He's also done a lot of team racing, the Cornerstone Cup, the Morgan Cup, the Hinman Masters. And in addition to being president of St. Francis Sailing Foundation, he's also here at St. Francis Yacht Club, the chair of the Challenges Committee, where different yacht clubs challenge each other. He's an advisor to Treasure Island Sailing Center. We've got some members of TISC here, namely Chris Childers, their new director, and also I think one of the people who's in the TISC program. One day in the TISC program, yes. And then outside of sailing, well, kind of inside sailing, he has 4 kids that he and his wife Shannon are raising. 3 of them are racing Opties now. And with 6 of them in the entire family, one day they will have enough people to have a whole J105 team. So we might have a J105 full of Kaisers racing out there someday in the future. So with that, let's go ahead and turn over to our speaker today. Take it away, Rolf Kaiser, and please welcome him.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Really appreciate it. Do we have the video on the screen? Perfect. Okay. Everyone who's here, I really appreciate you coming. People are joining virtually. Thank you as well. As Al mentioned, I'm president of the St. Francis Sailing Foundation. Puddles to Podium is our motto. It embodies the full scope of what we supply to our sailors. From the beginning youth to elite sailors, we want to help them along their journey all the way. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've been involved with the St. Francis Sailing Foundation for a long time, and I'm really happy that I'm the president because we do such great work for all our grantees. I think we supply a really important mission, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. We're a 501c3 charitable organization, and our goal is to support the sport of sailing for everyone in the San Francisco Bay and beyond. This is whether they're just beginning their journey or reaching the pinnacle of Olympic success. Our board and advisory board members come from a wide swath of the sailing community. Some are members of St. Francis Yacht Club, and some are not. We are 2 different organizations, but we have aligned goals. A little history about our organization. We've been supporting this mission to expand the sport of sailing for nearly 4 decades. The organization was founded by Paxton Davis, who's here in our audience, Bill Haler, and staff commodores Bill Leroy, Jim Kennedy, and Tom Allen. Many of the people that have led this organization over the years have been leaders of the St. Francis Yacht Club as well, and we are very proud that we have such a close relationship. So, whatever we bring in through fundraising goes right out the door as grants to our athletes. Our primary fundraising source is the annual auction, which we've hosted at St. Francis for many years. Over time, this has enabled us to develop an endowment fund. This, along with our general fund, is heavily restricted in how we can use our funds. So we do have some money, but it comes with some pretty pretty big strings attached. As far as our investments, we maintain a conservative strategy that seeks to maximize the value of the assets that have been entrusted to us, much like the St. Francis Yacht Club. Our biggest event and biggest source of fundraising is our annual auction party, which is going to happen this year on October 12th. It consists of a live auction, a silent auction, and this year a very special guest speaker. This year the theme is C'est la vie, because we're preparing for Paris 2024 for our athletes, and it will be a wonderful night, so I hope you all can attend. Some people have asked us about what our granting process is. Where does our money go? Well, we have a very thorough grant-making process that aims to spread the money that we have in a way that provides the most help to the most people. Our grants committee consists of people with diverse backgrounds and meets quarterly to review the many requests that we do receive. Each request is measured on a set of criteria and based upon our mission and our current priorities. The grantees that we support fall in a couple different categories. They run the gamut from elite athletes in world championships to junior sailors who are just getting started in their careers, to outreach programs to get more kids on the water for the first time, and to athletes with physical challenges as well. On the elite athlete side, we're supporting nearly 24 athletes on the Olympic track as they're preparing for the Paris Olympics next year. I'm proud to say that the two most recent sailing medalists for the United States, Caleb Payne and Zach Rayleigh, are both grantees, and they're both St. Francis Yacht Club members. We are hoping to add at least one more, Daniela Morose, in 2024. In addition to the Olympics, we're also supporting athletes at high-level events, both for match racing and Paralympic sailing, as well as team racing. We support a number of community organizations, the foremost of which is the Treasure Island Sailing Center. The Set Sail Learn program is an experiential STEM program which is provided free to fourth graders in the San Francisco Unified School District. And it provides interactive classroom instruction along with sailing and dinghies. Many of these kids have never been on the water before. They're just seeing this for the first time, so this is a wonderful way to allow people to get access to the water, and we can support our outreach mission. We are a huge supporter of junior sailing here at the St. Francis Yacht Club, and we have been so for many years. The grants that we make are focused on two things: providing support for non-members to take part in the junior sailing activities, and providing money for the program to test out new initiatives. And an example of some of these are development clinics that bring in world-class coaching from around the country. And as we know, St. Francis is also the forefront of foiling opportunities, and so last year we started a junior sailing program for foilers. As you have all seen as you walked in here, our J22 fleet is the envy of other clubs. In 2014, we bought 10 new boats to support sailing here in San Francisco. Now, the foundation owns these boats, but the club manages and maintains them for use by members and non-members in events here at the Yacht Club. And a large portion of the club is involved with being able to race in these boats for match racing and team racing and other challenge events with other yacht clubs. And as you may have heard, earlier this year we expanded our fleet from 10 boats to 13, thanks to some generous new donations to the St. Francis Sailing Foundation. And this gets the number of boats to the magic number of 13, which allows us to host much larger events here at the Yacht Club. And on to 2024. So Paris is only a few months away, and as you may have heard, there's been some organizational reshuffling at the U.S. Sailing Olympic team. We as a foundation are focused 100%. We're as a foundation are focused 100% on providing stability to the Olympic athletes as they navigate this rather difficult time, and we want to provide all the financial support to them that we can. Some of the people that we're supporting: On the skiff and multi-hull side, we're supporting the teams of Hans and Ian and Sarah and David. In foiling, we're supporting Daniela and Marcus. In the Ilka class, we're supporting Erica and Chapman. And in the double hand dinghies, we're supporting Maggie and Stephanie and Laura and Stu. Many of these people are St. Francis members. What's the point of all this? Well, the athletes themselves tell us that the financial support that the foundation brings to them directly helps them meet their goals. We hear this time and time again. So how can you help be a part of this? Well, first of all, we hope everyone will join us at the auction on October 12th here at the club. And if you're unable to attend, we hope that you consider making a donation. I would like to recognize specifically the foundation member, Beth Diatley. In 2020, she made the very generous donation of $25,000 to each of the athletes in the Olympics who are St. Francis members. And this helped them all get to the finish line. We'd like to think of us in your estate planning, if that's appropriate. The largest single donation to the foundation came through the estate of Tom Allen, who was one of the founders and very involved for many years. And it basically kickstarted our endowment and our ability to weather the financial storms that we've gone through in the last couple of years. So it was very helpful. If you have any questions about that, please contact us. We can put you in touch with our treasurer, Greg Marr, for further questions. And that is all I have. Thank you everyone for coming, and I think we'll now take some questions.
All right, great job, Rolf. That was awesome. Thanks for that overview. So one thing I'd like to do is, talk more about with the Olympics coming up in 2024. It's pretty exciting stuff. There's a lot of sailing to be done, between now and when the games start. I guess we're going to start in about 11 months from now. And also, I want to mention that we have a past president of St. Francis Sailing Foundation and Olympic medalist as well, who's been following our athletes very closely, and that's Pam Healy. So Pam, we'd love to be able to, so thanks for coming. We'd love to be able to, have you answer some of these questions as well. So feel free to come up here and grab the mic out of my hands to answer any of these. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, we've got some big events coming up. Can you just give us a bit of an overview of what classes are in the Olympics and where the venue is going to be, just kind of how that structure of the format of the events?
Sure. So obviously the 2024 Olympics is going to be in Paris. I went through a couple of the key classes that we're supporting. They range from skiffs to Ilkas, lasers, to the NACRAs, to kite foiling. Really runs the gamut. And I believe that this year, with some of the people that we have specifically in the Bay Area, specifically people like Daniela and Marcus, the opportunity to have foiling be in the Olympics is going to be fantastic for us. We have, obviously, in the last couple of quadrenniums, we haven't had a lot of success with U.S. sailing in the Olympics, but I think that can change. So I think we're really looking forward to that. As far as how things went, there was some big regattas in the last 2 months where some of the teams were able to qualify. And Pam, if you'd like to come up and kind of give a quick overview of what happened, I think that'd be great.
So recently, we had the test event in Marseille, And the way this selection for the Olympics works is that if you podiumed in that event in your fleet, you automatically got to be nominated to make the Olympic team. And Daniela podiumed. She got bronze medal, so she automatically knows that she's on the U.S. Olympic team for 2024. And then the next opportunity to qualify each country in each specific fleet just happened at the World Championships at The Hague. And there we qualified the 49er, we qualified the FX, and the ILCA 6. And then we had also already, and the women's kiting. So we've qualified in 4 fleets so far for the Olympics in Marseille. And the next opportunities to qualify will be at the Pan Am Games this October, and then some other events in the spring in Europe. So it's looking pretty good.
That's great, thanks. And so just to make sure I understand that, so a country has to qualify for the Olympics, and then whoever wins the country's Olympic trials then goes to the Olympics.
Correct.
Gotcha. And I guess in terms of classes, we've got men's and women's kiteboarding, men's and women's windsurfing. We have men's and women's skiffs in the 49er and 49er FX. Men's and women's lasers, also called ILCAs. What am I saying? We have mixed 470s and mixed multi-hull catamaran, yeah. So those are the classes, and then Marseille in the south of France there as well. So, which is great. And so, okay, so good. So how does, when you're in the U.S. and you're trying to raise funds, going to all these different regattas must cost a good chunk of money. I think you have to be in Europe because that's sort of the nexus of our sport, at least in terms of Olympic sailing is. How does it work in terms of if you're a U.S. Olympic hopeful? How does it work to raise money in the U.S. versus raising money in other countries?
Well, I think one main difference is that a lot of other countries, especially the ones that are at the top echelon of sailing, provide a lot more support financially to the Olympic athletes than does the United States. And so as a result, athletes here are much more self-responsible for providing that money and being able to get to the regattas, which is extremely expensive, both in terms of travel, in terms of equipment and logistics, and obviously just being able to survive while you're doing an Olympic campaign that may last several years is really a challenge. And so for that reason, nonprofit organizations like the St. Francis Sailing Foundation and a few others have really stepped in to try to make that possible for the athletes. And so that's really what our goal is. In the past, the U.S. Sailing Foundation was providing more money, and as of right now, that's a little more up in the air. So a number of organizations, including us, have stepped forward to say, we want to help the athletes be able to get to these regattas, and so we will step in to fill that void. And so that's what we're trying to do here today. And I hope that for 2024, we can build a pipeline for these athletes so that as they continue through this Olympics and beyond, they have more stability in being able to get to these events than they've had in the last couple months.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess if you really think about some of those costs, some of the non-obvious ones, if I'm doing an event, let's say in Marseille, in France, I guess I have to ship, if I'm doing a 470 or a skiff or a NACRA, I guess I have to ship my boat over there, right?
You have to get your equipment there. You have to get your coach there. The coach has to get his equipment there. You have to obviously be there, have housing. Travel's enormously expensive. All these costs that have gone up significantly in the last couple of years due to inflation just make it more and more challenging to run an Olympic campaign. And so that's why what we do here and the money that we're able to provide is so important.
Yeah, and I guess it runs well in the 6 figures, I think, for an athlete, per year, per athlete, I think.
Easily. It can easily be that much, yes.
Wow. It's a little bit more than my son's Opties campaign, I think. Now I think other countries have a lot of support. Like I think the UK, their national lottery, actually, their funds go to support Olympic athletes of all sports. But And if what they do is they sort of zero in on certain sports they feel they can do well in. So not so much swimming and track, because they figure the U.S. will and other countries will do well there. But sailing is one of the ones they zero in on, right? So those sailors don't even have to. They just get funding from the government straight up.
Yeah, the UK is a great example of a country that has had great success in the last several decades in sailing. And the reason they have that success is because they are supported by the government. The U.S. sailing is not supported by the government or by lotteries or anything like that. It is entirely supported by donations.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think it's significant. The winningest Olympic sailor in history, Ben Ainslie, 5 medals, comes from the UK. So I don't think that's a coincidence.
It's not.
Yeah. So and then in terms of when we think Olympics, and we kind of think, okay, with a pipeline of people coming into those Olympic campaigns, you mentioned ODP. What does that stand for, and kind of what's that all about?
So the ODP is the Olympic Development Program. The idea behind that is to provide a coaching pipeline for people who are trying to get to that last level of the Olympics. And so this is something that has been going on for a lot of years that we've been supportive of. There are clinics that have to take place all over the country, and we've hosted many clinics here at the St. Francis Yacht Club in conjunction with U.S. Sailing. We are continuing to support things like that. There were tentative plans to have another Olympic Development Program clinic this summer, but due to logistics, that didn't work out. But we are definitely ready to support things like that as they continue on, especially with the uncertainty around U.S. sailing.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think this venue here, especially on windy summer days, must be a phenomenal place for the ODP. I guess in terms of the windsurfers, the wingfoil, kiteboarders, etc.
Yeah, obviously we have such a great venue here that we're so fortunate to have. It provides a really good place for these people to practice in heavy wind and get that experience that they can't get in other places. So this is why we try to support these types of events.
Yeah. The Mistrals, I hope I'm saying that right, in Marseille can be pretty fierce. So San Francisco Bay is probably a good place to get ready for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then switching gears, you mentioned puddles to podium. I always love that analogy because it really shows how the foundation is expanding both the base of the sport, the grassroots of the sport, and people kind of coming in, as well as the upper echelons, and kind of accelerating all the pieces between that. I think TISC is a great example of that. And of course, Chris, keep us honest here as the director. But can you tell us more about what TISC does and Set Sail and Learn and how that works? How many students? What a typical day looks like?
Sure. Chris, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Happy to. So the Set Sail Learn program is our field trip program for San Francisco fourth graders. We take about 50 classrooms per year, fall and then spring. We bring them out for STEM-based education programs. They learn about either the ecology of the bay, centered on Dungeness crabs, the power of the wind and renewable energy, and the last one is engineering and maritime history, so how boats have changed. We bring about 1,200 kids through the program each school year. The program sells out in less than hours each year, and as our biggest donor to this program, we are unbelievably thankful to the St. Francis Sailing Foundation for literally, getting kids that haven't been over a bridge, haven't been outside of the city. A ferry would be a stretch for these kids. We're getting them sailing 4 days a week over in Clipper Cove. It's really, really incredible. I would encourage everybody to come check it out.
That's awesome. And I think one of the cool things is that for a lot of these kids, they've never even touched the bay, let alone be in a sailboat. And the great thing is with sailing, physics is everything. Physics is so much of it. I mean, there's obviously biology and so forth, but it's a great way to sort of just intuitively start to learn things like leverage and Newtonian mechanics and things like that. And you're not going to be teaching those to a fourth grader, but once they get into high school or college, they kind of have that intuitive background. So which is wonderful. And I guess we've been doing, or TISC has been doing Set Sail Learn now for a decade. So if I'm doing the math right, that's over 10,000 people, kids, going through that program, which is really tremendous. I can't think of any other sailing foundation in the world, really, that's touched that many sailors and really brought, or touched that many grantees and brought them into our sport.
As far as we know, there isn't one.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's a really good point, that there isn't a lot of competition on the level of St. Francis Sailing Foundation. As far as the number of people that we help and on the amount of money that we are able to give away, there are very few organizations in the country that are even come close to us.
Yeah, which is great. And then also, can you talk a little bit about sailors with different abilities? I mean, who have physical limitations, whether it's BADS or parasailing. Talk about how we've supported that, and maybe even also, what does that look like if one is not able to, how are the boats changed to be able to do that?
Sure. So there's an organization in the Bay Area, the Bay Area Association of Disabled Sailors, that basically provides opportunities for people with physical challenges to get out on dinghies, to do some racing, to learn how to sail. And we've been a supporter of theirs for many years. They host regattas in the bay. They provide equipment that is specially tailored to people that have mobility problems or difficulty getting around. And it's really a cool opportunity that we are able to provide for these people through some of our funding. So the type of challenges that people face that they're able to get through sailing and be able to be parts of these events. It can be both mental disabilities as well as physical disabilities, limited sight, things like that, and people are able to navigate all this due to some of the help that we are able to provide.
That's great. Is that also out of TISC, or is it somewhere else?
It is sometimes out of TISC and sometimes out of the South Bay.
Gotcha. Okay. And when we say TISC, that means Treasure Island Sailing Center. So for anyone not familiar with those terms listening in, and then I think we also at the recent World Sailing Championships in Marseille, well, as in Europe, but it was, I think, up at a lake in Holland called Lake Brassemermer. I think there was also a parasailing world championship, the Paralympics. And did we have any involvement with that at all, and how'd that go?
So we did support one of the athletes there, Betsy Allison, and I think she won, I guess.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah, so Betsy Allison, world-class sailor, and so she jumped into Paralympic sailing, and she's done really well there, so which is great. Good. So I think that kind of covers a lot of the questions that I had. Any other questions from people here in the room? Okay, Staff Commodore Kimball Livingston has a question.
There will not be an answer, but I'm fully bought into the mission of getting these athletes to Paris, Marseille, 2024. It's a commitment that we have to make. Can you really convince me that the model the U.S. is using going forward will ever be able to match the countries that professionalize their sailors beginning as teenagers?
Or younger, even.
So the question is, can I convince you of that? I'm not sure I can, because I'm not sure that I personally fully believe that would work. I think that the level of support that the government and other organizations are able to provide some of the other countries, like the UK, like Australia, like New Zealand, I think that model has to be something that the United States tries to emulate. And obviously that would be a big change in how things are managed compared to how they are today. But I think that the results kind of speak for themselves. As far as professionalizing kids at a younger age, there are definitely pros and cons to doing so, but I feel that it all depends on how well we want to do with these Olympics. We have to get people that are able to succeed at this level, and I think that means a lot of training.
perhaps that training is not happening in the way it should be, the most optimum way, but I think that has to be a part of it.
I have a comment. I do think with the games coming to Los Angeles in 2028 and having the home field advantage and not having to qualify the country, we automatically get to have an entrant in every fleet. I do think that our athletes, if they set up camp in Los Angeles and really train really hard and don't spend as much time traveling all over Kingdom Come and spending all that money on shipping, we could have more of an even playing field. So I am optimistic that we might not match the other countries in terms of, the funding that they receive, but I think we're really going to have an advantage with having the games be in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if someone was, a recent college grad and they're, coming out, graduated in this year or, next year or 2026, what a cool thing to do would be to really, set up, like you say, set up shop in Los Angeles and really train a lot. And a lot of the classes from around the world are going to be coming to LA. Even there's been some talk about some classes, there's only so many regattas you can hold out of Long Beach. And so there's a question of, how many regattas could be held out here in San Francisco Bay as a backup place, especially less windy venues such as Alameda. And so there have been discussions around there. So yeah, it's really definitely LA in particular, but also I think West Coast in general, I think will be really interesting for the next quadrennium. But yeah, Kimball, it's a good question you ask, and I think we should continue to discuss it.
Well, the point is, what about 2032?
I don't even know where that is. Brisbane? Australia? Okay. So there'll be some shipping there. But yeah, it's a good question. To be continued.
I think what's important is that we need to lay the groundwork now. If we have a great opportunity to change how things are handled, given the situation with the U.S. Olympic Committee on the sailing side. I think that this is when we can figure out how we are going to get to 2032 by focusing on having organizations such as this one fill that void. I think is going to put us along the right path.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Other questions? No? Do we have any questions from the live stream? All right. Well, I think if that's it, any closing comments, Rolf?
No, thank you everyone for coming, and I really appreciate you, and I hope that we see you all at October 12th.
Awesome. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.